I don't know what the problem is with this thing. It's a bit laggy, but yeah, I accidentally started it while I was still on Wi-Fi, and I don't know, like YouTube and other websites like Rumble too, for example, tend to freak out for some reason on well, on anything and everything, I assume. When you switch from Wi-Fi to LTE, it's kind of like, hey, dude, all you have to do is just like, okay, well, you know, connection was a bit wonky for a second, but now it's back. Let's keep working. But, like, no. Some websites are pretty crap at it. So I decided to restart the stream, which was probably not needed, because YouTube probably has whatever you want to call it, like stream crash prevention system. Twitch has had it since forever ago. Kick doesn't necessarily have it, I think, in terms of VODs at least, but it just like chops your VODs into like a million tiny pieces if your connection keeps disconnecting, but at least like it keeps reconnecting automatically, you know. So that's nice. That's not how things used to be 10 years ago. 10 years ago, you know, oh, you drop internet for a second, your whole stream fucking crashes. And now you need to start the stream all over again. You know, sending out notifications for all your followers all over again. They probably need to refresh the page. Whatever. Yeah, but I was just like not sure if the app itself would re-establish connection to the servers, or to the multi-stream server, because I don't know, things kind of wonky for some reason when switching from Wi-Fi to LTE. Yeah, anyway, so it's been over 2 minutes. I have probably synchronized all the VODs and whatever. Not gonna go again over why I think first couple of minutes of my VODs usually missing. Well, it's because of the multi-stream thing. But yeah, anyway, oof. Goddamn, it's been a while since I talked and walked. I'm already out of breath. That's a good start. I'm also wearing a scarf because the zipper broke on my jacket. So walking couple times a day like this, with my like neck and the better part of my chest, I suppose, completely exposed. I'm pretty sure last time I got sick, which was about a month ago, that's why I got sick, as I just completely overexposed my neck to like coldness and shit. So I'm wearing a scarf, and it's I never wear scarves. It's just a pain in the ass, kind of like accessory to have. Yet another thing to forget somewhere. Well, anyway, so I think that might be contributing to me just being asphyxiated slightly. Anyway, I finally finished Kingdom Come Deliverance, which was last time I talked about it. It was probably over a month ago, so you can probably from that kind of like deduce, you know, you can calculate how much time I legitimately have for gaming, which was pretty much no time at all. And I have skipped quite a few steps. Actually, I'm pretty sure that I've most people who finished Kingdom Come Deliverance have probably spent at least 10 to maybe even 15. I think probably at least 10 more hours than I have. And because of how Aini, less fanatism, please. There, come on. Because of how pain in the ass everything in the game is, and how absolutely terrible the final impression it impresses on you, I even forgot to check my statistics. I thought about yesterday of launching the game, just checking a few more things, making sure that there's pretty much nothing else to do for me there. And I suppose it's one of the half a dozen quote-unquote fast travels that weren't fast at all, during which you cannot do anything, like check your inventory, for example. Oh no, that would be way too unimmersive. The ability to check your inventory during fast travel, which isn't fast at all. By the way, in hardcore mode, you don't have fast travel. Guys, I'm sorry, but without fast travel, that game is borderline unplayable. Because certain quests literally force you to travel across the entire map just to go to one NPC and tell them one line. Like, are you really gonna do that on hardcore mode without fast travel and pretend that, oh, this is so immersive, oh, I'm such enjoying this? No, don't be fucking silly. Do not be silly. Without fast travel, that game is borderline unplayable. Like, legit. You are not doing that. If you just wanna beeline to and through the main story, yeah, absolutely, you can do it on hardcore. But to do actual, immersive thing with, oh, I'm gonna, not gonna have a map, and yeah, we'll be like super immersive and stuff. No, you're not doing it on survival. No, it's just physically impossible. Well, not physically impossible, but you're just not doing it. I'm not walking or riding, through the entire map just so that I can come to that one miller or something. And not even miller, like the last goddamn quest where you have to go to every single innkeeper on the map and ask them for a few kegs of beer. You're really gonna do that without fast travel? No. Well, anyway, so the game becomes so unbearable towards the end. Somewhere between half a dozen fast travels, I completely forgot to check my statistics. Well, anyway, I can tell you my statistics. So at the beginning of the game, after spending probably about 2 hours on the main story, I spent about 15 to maybe like 18-ish. I think overall it was slightly over 20, but I have to include, the mandatory 3 hours of, unskippable cutscenes and walking sections, which is the beginning of the game. So probably around 20-ish hours I spent basically just adventuring. And you might say, well, at the beginning of the game, actually what you should do, you need to focus the main story so that you have necessary skills to actually, do something in the world. I beg to differ. There are certain skills that you will absolutely not grow at all through the main story. Mainly stealth, lockpicking, bow. Archery. First of all, the game never pretty much even asks you for archery, except for the initial kind of tutorial for it, where you compete with Huns. Since then, you literally never have to do archery at all. So archery is something that you do purely voluntarily. Main story doesn't do anything for that. Stealth, lockpicking, all that stuff is just for you. So I did my thing, that I do always. Peshek at the very beginning of the game told me that, hey dude, if you visit other millers, we are basically kind of like the Thieves Guild, essentially, of this game. And I'm like, hey, that sounds interesting. I'm gonna do that. So I did that, and it was quite a pain in the ass to upgrade lockpicking, definitely. And neither upgraded lockpicking nor upgraded stealth pretty much helped me for any of the quests, nor the main story. And anyway, I have done kind of freelance, whatever, free world exploration for probably about 20 hours, which is not bad, not bad. Some of it was very painful, and mostly at the beginning. So The main story, though, is actually a pretty long quest, and the problem is that it starts with something like 4 hours of unskippable cutscenes, which is fine once you have tolerated it, but then the game actually ends with something like 6 hours of unskippable cutscenes. Literally everything from what do you call it? The big bandit camp, the main one behind Sasao. Everything from that assault to the very beginning of the game is just one unskippable cutscene, except for the one giant fetch quest. It's called Siege, where all the steps are basically optional, except for get the one dude who can make the trebuchet. Every other step is completely optional. So, except for that one giant fetch quest that, like, you don't even have to do, the last 6 hours of the game are basically complete unskippable cutscene, and you don't even have to, like, there are a few battles, whatever, you literally don't even have to do anything, those battles will win themselves, which is quite interesting, because it technically accommodates to the play style of, Henry's, of players who suck at fighting. But it doesn't quite work immersion-wise, because the story completely assumes that you're a master swordsman by about the middle of the game. But anyway, the last 6 to... Actually, honestly, that's if you kind of like push things to be finally over. But if you don't, like for me personally, probably the last 10-ish hours were just unbearable slog and weren't even like a proper RPG. So let's get this one thing out of the way. Now that I have completed the game, I've done most of the side quests, except for the ones that I failed on purpose, by killing somebody. I can now definitively declare, because I know pretty much everything about the game. Yay! Mummy, what are you doing here? That the meme of in-income deliverance being this like super hardcore, super challenging, brutal, unforgiving, but very immersive game, it's really not. All of its hardcore / punishing spirit is just front-loaded. Once you get over the initial hump of Henry being so bad at everything, like you literally hurt yourself by trying anything, once you get over that initial hump, which is more kind of like a completely separate part of the game, you get into the main game proper, into the main chunk of it. And Momo, I don't trust you what you're sniffing out there. Any second now, you will stumble upon a piece of poop and gulp it right fucking down, and I will be freaking out. Okay, yes. Alrighty. All of those hardcore punishing elements of the game evaporate after about, I would say, 3 to 4 hours, maybe 6. In terms of combat being punishing and, so difficult, I cannot wrap my head around it, guys. First of all, you don't have to do it at all, okay? You pretty much do not have to do combat at all. Second, you can just pick up archery to kill an odd man you feel like killing. In terms of actually killing somebody, I feel like that big, I think, German dude, the bald one, the one basically that kicks Henry's ass like early in the game. He's pretty much the only real kind of like boss fight / real fight that you have to win. Every other fight in the game is either something that you completely lose, like it's a friendly-ish, non-lethal brawl, like fist fight, So if you lose it, it's not a big deal. There is one kind of like side-ish quest that is part of the main quest where you have to basically win, like you have to become like a champion of a fight club, which is like, I mean, you know, unarmed, whatever. What? Ooh, movie. Yeah, just kind of like knuckle dusting, you know, fight club. But me with barely any skill in unarmed, and my strength was also not particularly high. I was not like a fighter at all. But towards that part of the game, I still had like 15 strength and 15 vitality anyway, which is like really funny, because that stuff barely upgrades through like archery and just general, you know, doing things. Being overburdened is supposed to upgrade your strength. It barely does. After I was done with my 20 hours of constantly not being able to pick anything up, I installed mod that gave me like near infinite inventory space. I like the first perks I got in strength were Mule and Mule 2, like as soon as I could get them, but it's just not enough. The game just does not allow you to have that stuff. You can never it doesn't allow you to have enough in the stat of like whatever fucking burden, you know, carry capacity. It just doesn't. So I kind of had to fix it myself. Another thing I did fix, I did install the mod that like, you know, puts a reticle in the middle of your screen when you shoot archery, because I have a big screen, you know, I have an ultra wide, and I do not really sit kind of like right in front of it. So it's just, I don't know. Obviously, I could just turn on the reticle option on the monitor itself, but either do that or install a mod, honestly, because it's just not worth it. It doesn't make any fucking sense. In real life, you have a pretty good kind of like hand-eye coordination, you know, like you can do a pretty good job at pointing at something and knowing that you are pointing at it, you know, despite your hand not technically being in the middle of your vision, right? Yeah, like you do it like this and you still know that you're pointing at it. But in a video game where you do not have stereo vision, right? You have one single monitor that shows you one single camera perspective. You do not have stereo vision. You do not have depth perception. You know, your hand-eye coordination is not on the level like Henry's, you know, controlled through you. Hand-eye coordination is not as good as yours. So in every single situation, judging exactly where the center of the screen is just, it's just not fair. And by not fair, I mean it's not fun. It just doesn't really quite work. And by the way, the draw time, the time it takes you to draw an arrow, even, I think I got all the way to level 16 in archery. Guys, even on level 16, it takes forever to draw your bow. And unless it's fully drawn, your arrow will go fuck knows where, and it will travel like 10 feet at most. But even fully drawn, honestly, it's it pretty often goes like wherever the game feels like at any given moment, even at a pretty high level, which honestly doesn't fucking make super giant sense. Another thing, by the way, is that in order to equip a bow that makes, you know, damage worth a damn, you pretty much have to have like maxed out strength, which honestly doesn't make super giant sense. from the gameplay perspective at least, because I mean, come on, you mean basically unless I have like maxed out strength and I can equip kind of like a Dark Souls equivalent or a Kingdom Come Deliverance of a Dark Souls great bow, like I really cannot do that much damage to people unless I headshot them. I mean, you do a fair amount of damage, but sometimes for like some unknown fucking reason, enemies in armor, if you body shot them, it might take like 6 fucking arrows to kill them. I kid you not. Sometimes it takes like 1 to 2 to kill them. Some enemies drop from 1. I kid you not. So it's very inconsistent, you know, archery. But if you really wanna kind of like escape from the combat and being like, I cannot play Kingdom Come Deliverance because combat is so janky, jank, you're a jank. And guys, you actually don't have to do it, like ever. Why do you have to do it? Because you feel like you have to play this like Skyrim, you know, experience where you go out of your way to seek out bandit camps and whatever. But you don't have to do it. There are no radial quest system that generates a bandit camp for you, like, you know, with like a farmer in need of you to clear it out. There are a few, yes, quests like that, which aren't even quests. They are quite literally kind of like a radial activity type of thing. But again, no one's forcing you to do them. In fact, it's like really boring and a shallow type of activity for a game like that. Like, why are you forcing yourself to do it and then bitch about game being jank, also janky? Well, you don't have to do it if it's janky. Like, play it like a fucking role-playing game, not like a whatever Skyrim is, like Skybox, you know, like waving your hand in front of you with a weapon simulator. You know, just play it as a kind of like exploratory. Ooh. It's probably a motorcycle. Just, you know, play it kind of like an immersive sim type of deal. Well, speaking of the immersive sim qualities of Kingdom Come, Kingdom Come most definitely is not something that I would call a particularly kind of like mind-blowing RPG. First of all, it's most definitely fucking no immersive sim. The level of interaction you have with the open world is actually very shallow, which is where the whole immersion thing for me goes absolutely out the window. Kingdom Come is a very video gamey video game. The fact that you fast travel by physically seeing your character fast traveling doesn't really make it all that fucking immersive to me. The fact that it actually takes a while to skip time, well, guess what? In Elder Scrolls, it takes a while too. Like, yeah, sure, it takes longer in Kingdom Come, but, like, dude, whatever. Honestly, it's not that big a deal. What else? Oh, you can only save with savior schnapps. Yeah. The deficit of savior schnapps goes away after about 5 hours of the game. You know, if you do proper looting and if you do proper thieving, you pretty much have infinite money, or you can summon whatever money you need at any point. Like if you just invest, you know, into a raid or two of a few storefronts. Fucking Pasha can be raided for 1k groschen. I think every couple days that thing resets. At the beginning of the game, it's pretty interesting to play this kind of like, you know, scarcity type of survival-ish type of thing. But after about 10 hours, if you do some thieving or if you do some exploration, some Skyrimming, some looting, you will very quickly discover that actually, like, you can basically summon infinite money at any point if you need them. So, like, what's the big catch? with the whole hardcoreness and whatever. Very early on in the game, you can start sneaking into houses of people and like killing them in their sleep with a stealth attack, and nothing fucking stops you. You still get like jail time, you still get bounty for you, even when you're completely unnoticed, because people just assume that, you know, like, or rather the game assumes that people saw you and they're like, well, that's a stranger, and now we have a couple corpses in our town, so stranger probably killed them. That's a fair assumption, I suppose, but like, are you seriously telling me there is absolutely no way to completely sneak into a town, kill somebody, and get out, so that in a few hours somebody doesn't discover a corpse and immediately blames you for it? And, well, they don't just blame you, right? Because in a situation like that, again, you want a fully immersive game, well, somebody assumes that's you, you get a bounty, you know. Well, what if you can prove that it's not you? Or you just say, well, you know, какие ваши доказательства? And be like, what's your fucking proof that I did it? Like, whatever. Like, honestly, whatever. It has the stupid Skyrim thing, or rather, not Skyrim even, just Elder Scrolls thing, where if you want to bribe a guard, they still confiscate everything stolen you have on you. If you have things stolen on you, by the way, they never, the tag stolen never gets removed from them. But if you stash them in your, in your crate, in your box, and wait for a couple days, the tag goes away. So, what do you mean? Are they hidden on my body or are they hidden in my crate? Like, what difference does it make? By the way, the game never teaches you that, but that system completely breaks the idea of you selling stolen shit to millers. Like, what's the point? There are only 3 millers in the game. Like, every time you need to sell shit, you're gonna travel to one of those? Just stash it in your box and wait for a few days, and then you can sell it to pretty much anyone. For as technically kind of unbelievable as Elder Scrolls had that system, right, where every single merchant in the entire world and every single guard in the entire world will immediately recognize, you know, a stolen lockpick. Oh, this lockpick, this one is stolen, I can tell it, right? They will immediately recognize that little item is stolen. But they will not recognize, that, like, status will never go away. the status of that lockpick just never going away. It will forever be recognized by anyone as stolen. Well, yeah, it's very video gamey and very unbelievable. By the way, I just realized that I had an earbud in my ear the entire time, so I hope the wrong microphone was not being used. If it was, like, honestly, blame fucking Samsung. And blame Prism for not having an obvious button for, like, choose, you know, whichever fucking microphone you're using. Okay, how the fuck do I even do this now? Moment, stop. Okay. Well, hopefully I still have sound and whatnot. If I don't, like, honestly, just, you know, insert a DSP clip and that's all we can do about it. What we can do. Alrighty. Yeah, so it's very video gamey, obviously, how Elder Scrolls, you know, has this thing where no matter what you steal, if it's like an apple, it's immediately tagged as stolen, and everyone will recognize that apple in the world as stolen. Yeah, sure, it's video gamey, but at least, you know, it makes sense that in order to sell that shit, you need to find a fence. So, you know, in Kingdom Come, it's kind of like, well, we have fences, but actually you don't have to use them at all. In fact, it's kind of like a bad thing to use them, I suppose, to make money, because you only get something like, I don't know, 20% of worth of the item, you know, that you'd get by selling to it. Well, okay, maybe not 20% of what you'd get selling to a normal merchant, but selling to a normal merchant, you would get maybe something like 60 to 70 to 80% of the item's worth. Selling to a fence, you get like 20 to 30 tops. Like, legitimately, dude, I kid you not, I had like pieces of jewelry and kind of like armor that I would the game would tell me is worth like over 1,000K. I would take it to a fence and the fence would be like, I'll give you 100 groschen for this. Are you fucking kidding me? Whatever, you know? So that's fucking video game for you. And you completely do not have to engage with that system. And once you learn all those things, that actually, you know, hardcore as that game is, I can literally sneak into people's houses and kill them in their sleep in the very beginning of the game. Like, what are you telling me about this game being hardcore? You know, you occasionally can go through certain kind of like quests by, maybe you need to acquire an item from somebody. Well, maybe you can pay that person off. Maybe you can do a stupid errand for them. Or maybe you can kill them and take the item. Or maybe you can sneak into their house and steal that item from their chest. That's nice. It's real nice. The problem, though, is that the sneaking solution does not require high sneaking skill, because it will involve you sneaking into the house where no one's in the house. The lock is probably not that difficult to lockpick, but even to pick it. But even if it is, like from that point on, you would succeed at the mission, even if you were in plate armor and even if you were in plate armor and you had like 1 in the stealth skill. So the game isn't... the game barely does anything to reward players for having like an archer build or a thief build. Like, you can be a thief with level 1 in stealth, honestly. You know? So the whole like immersion thing of kind of like, ooh, it is so challenging, you suck at everything. No, you don't suck at everything. If you just play carefully, you can completely avoid direct combat in the game and do whatever you want, kill whoever you want, you know. And in fact, the game does not even force you to engage in combat at all, except for one fight in the middle of the game, you know, with the bald dude. So, like, guys, whatever. And in terms of just the world itself being, oh, so immersive, guys, for everything, every immersive thing Kingdom Come does, which it's not that many things, honestly, it does like 10 more things that are completely video game. And also, you think, oh, but what about all those decisions, you know, decisions and consequences game that you can do? Well, first of all, decisions and consequences are mainly about the main quest, but the game doesn't actually react to those. You know, at that point, you might as well just do an immersive sim, where instead of like 6 pre-planned like decisions that you can make at any moment, you have potentially infinite amount of decisions, and then the game just assumes that you did it right and goes on, you know, and keeps on chugging. What I'm talking about? Well, Kingdom Come Deliverance is not an immersive sim. For every single thing that you think you have discovered as this like brilliant, you know, kind of like emergent gameplay / storytelling element, it was actually pre-planned. I can think of like one example where most likely it wasn't pre-planned and it was kind of genius, but in the same quest, the game does one of the biggest linear scripted bullshit that honestly just annoyed me so much towards the end of the game. So here's a pretty good example, right? Actually, let's just talk generalities for 1 more minute. Whenever you feel like you have discovered an interesting way to complete a quest, like I said, you know, you need to get an item. Maybe you can steal it, maybe you can kill the person and take their item. Like whatever. The game accepts, I suppose, whatever you do to get the item. And then you are able to complete the objective. Yes. But the game does not necessarily recognize, in fact, it almost never recognizes the way you achieved the objective. Pretty often, the game will literally give you, like, it will recognize that it gives you optional objectives in the quest. and maybe you can skip them. But then in the dialogue, the characters and Henry himself will be talking about that optional thing that you skipped as if it was done. In fact, unless you actually pursued that, or pursue that optional objective, Henry wouldn't even know about something, and then that something is brought up in the dialogue as if Henry like did the thing and knows everything about it. So yeah, the game does allow you sometimes to solve a problem your own way, but as a role-playing game, so as an immersive sim, for something like an immersive sim, that would work. But for a role-playing game, it's just ridiculous, you know, that I'm gonna go and instead of solving the plague problem in the village, I just go straight to the dude I need to go to, which according to the story, I cannot go to that dude until I solve the plague. But if I kill the guard, I lockpick the door, I go to the dude will not talk to me because, oh, you know, you need to cure me of plague before you can talk to me. Okay, what if I just kill you and take your, there's a note on you that explains everything I need to know. Okay, cool, what if I do that? Well, if I do that, in the following dialogue, in multiple instances of following dialogue, the game will treat me as if I have saved that village from the plague. You know? Or actually, not necessarily as if I saved the village from the plague, but I think what Henry literally says is that, yeah, he talks about how, like, humans had poisoned the well. No, unless you investigate the plague, you have no idea that it was humans, that it was well poisoning, nothing. But the game just does that. And, you know, for somebody like me, I understand that type of stuff, right? But a normie, like a legit real normie, right? Like if your dad plays that game, he will probably be confused. He'll be like, what the fuck are you talking about, Henry? Like, it would literally not make sense to somebody. And the only reason, by the way, I know that because I did both ways. I saved, kind of like by accident almost. And I tried doing the plague thing, and I did it. And then I realized, well, what if I try doing it differently? And then I did it differently, which would have saved me like hour and a half of time, which I should have done that to begin with. I did it like the right way, right? By breaking into the barn where the captive was being held and just killing him because, well, he wouldn't talk to me because, you know, his tummy aches. So you cannot talk to him, period. Again, oh, how realistic, how immersive. I cannot talk to this person because the game doesn't allow me to talk to them despite them being right in front of me. Yeah, guys, like super realistic, so immersive. Ooh, immersion just fucking, you know, shoots out of the ass of the game. And yeah, you can just like kill the dude and take the note with the information that you need. So I tried doing that. So that's why I know about the well and the humans poisoning it, because I did it both ways. So that's pretty cool, right? Yeah, but the game does not actually recognize how you done the objective. The game doesn't even recognize the skipping of its own optional objective. It's not even that, oh, you know, the game tells you go get the item, but doesn't tell you how exactly you're supposed to get it. It gives you like 10 options and you pick one. Not as an optional objective, but as just kind of like the game only recognizes the fact that you need to get the item. So you get the item, the game recognizes it, and then nobody brings up the fact that you actually killed the dude to get the item. Because it doesn't matter, you know, the game doesn't give a fuck. That's one thing, you know, that would be one thing. But what actually happens is that the game does not recognize its own optional objectives being completed and in what way, or not being completed. So the game is not very well written as an RPG in that matter. And I don't know, nobody gives the game shit for that. Everyone just praises, oh, in how many ways you can solve the fucking problems, you know, ooh, so much freedom and so much immersion. So much freedom occasionally, yes. So much immersion, Nah, give me a break. Dude, let's walk around for 10 more minutes. Come on. Sorry. I need to finish this review. Okay, so... But sometimes the game does the opposite. So at the very end of the game, for example, I was basically Jeff Bezos in terms of money. And despite the fact that I killed a lot of people, and a lot of villagers hated me. In fact, I had a fucking jail sentence in Rattay. So I had to sneak into the town every time I needed to talk to somebody in there. And occasionally I would have to kill a few guards in order to do that. So, you know, only making my situation worse. So most people wouldn't like even talk to me. So I would have to bribe every single person, even like story person, in order to talk to them. That was pretty interesting. But here's what happens towards the end of the game. You need, at one point, to get a doctor. That's an optional step, actually, in the quest. Mo. Yeah, I know. There's something living there, most likely, but let's not, you know, let's not confirm whether it's a skunk or not. Let's do it some other time. You need to get a healer, right? You need to get a fucking healer. And the only healer you can get in the whole entire game is well, as far as I know, is the dude in the monastery. He's the only healer in the entire game that can help. And the dude in the monastery tells you, well, I already have a lot of patients, so I can't really, you know, I can't really help you with that. But if you go talk to my nurse, essentially, she's the only one that actually does the work for some reason, so I'm supposed to talk to her, not him. But if you go talk to the nurse, I can kind of, you know, maybe if you literally go out of your way and heal my fucking patients, I will help you, maybe. But you need to make it so that I don't have as many patients to take care of, and then I will go with you. And I said, okay, well, let's look into that. And it was just fucking ridiculous. The game literally expects you. So that doctor dude and the nurse bitch that you know from Skalitz, actually, like, do literally nothing. You're supposed to heal like an entire like barrack full of entire fucking barrack full of like dying people. And I said, fuck that, are you kidding me? The game was literally about to be over, and now I need to do this thing before I can continue the story. So I saved, I skipped time, I saved, I sneak into the whole thing in the middle of the night, and I killed every single fucking thing I could kill in that room, except for one dude who was story related, who I couldn't. So those people, very tragically, almost all, well, not almost, all died of either being unexpectedly stabbed by their sickness, or they grew arrows out of their, well, skulls, which were also fatal. And immediately in the middle of the night, I go to the doctor and I like, hey dude, can you help me? And the doctor says, oh yeah, actually, like, I'm not that busy right now. I don't have that many patients. Yeah, I can totally go. I laughed out loud that I was able to do that. But it turns out is that, you know, the whole thing with you taking care of the patients was actually part of the side quest that you could have done at any moment in the game. And if you like done it preemptively, you would have went to the doctor and the doctor said, oh yeah, I don't have patients, let's go. So the whole thing, really, the game did not necessarily check for how I did the quest. It checked for whether the dude like literally had patience or not. So the fact that the game checked for something like that, which allowed for such a solution that was clearly not specifically thought through by the developers. I mean, they probably thought about it, but the way they programmed the game allowed, you know, for a solution like that. That's fucking brilliant. You know what's not brilliant? In the same quest, I had to fucking Google it. So, first thing is minor. You need to get a priest. So there's the Father fucking Goldfinger, or whatever the fuck, that everyone loves. Which I didn't do the quest with him, by the way. There's a side quest where you go get drunk with the priest and participate in a gangbang with him, if I'm not mistaken. So that's interesting. Or not necessarily a gangbang, an orgy. So that's interesting. And I didn't do it because the guy had some information for me and I failed the speech check that you can do. If you have high enough speech, immediately as you meet them, you can get the information out of him. But I failed that speech check despite sometimes even when you have the stats for the speech check, it still fails. So it failed. And I'm like, okay, cool. But the dude says, hey, meet me at the tavern later. And as you meet the dude at the tavern, you have a dialogue. And he asks you a bunch of questions, first of all. And if you're an asshole to him and don't answer any of his questions, he basically tells you to fuck off and he doesn't speak to you ever again. And you cannot reinitiate that line of dialogue with him ever again. Okay, super fucking immersive, guys. Super realistic. So immersive. I cannot have enough immersion in this world. Like super video gamey, you know, oh, you failed the thing, like the character will no longer talk to you. Yeah, whatever. Super immersive, guys. Love it. But if you answer his stupid questions, in the end, he will asks you to spend the night drinking with him. Like go, go on the binge drinking, whatever. Let's go like bar hopping. And if you say no, it fails that line of dialogue with him and he will not help you ever again, period. So you need to ask all of his stupid questions and then you need to agree to go drink with him, which triggers like an optional, walking section, essentially. It triggers a cutscene that's about like 5 minutes long, maybe. And then in the end, you have to give a sermon because of him, because you're both hungover, but apparently he's more than you are. And if you fail that sermon, if you don't deliver it correctly, if you don't get the public, the mass, all hard and erect with your sermon, the dude chastises you for being a shit preacher, for being a shit priest, or not priest, whatever you call it. Or priest, I suppose, right, is the proper word. Yeah. I was just confusing with like a monk and a priest because like the monks in the monastery are not like priests, right? They are not like godfathers. There are none, in fact. Like the monastery is strangely kind of like, it's a religious place technically, but it's kind of like a political religious place. It's not like a real religious place. So when you're looking for a priest, for example, there are none in the monastery. So anyway, if you fail whatever Christians call it, if you fail the sermon, it fails that line of dialogue. It spoils your relationship with the Goldfinger, and he will not tell you what you need to do, and you can never reapproach him to question him about that. You can become friends with him, by the way, still by doing his side quests, or side quest, I don't remember how many he has. But like, you can never re-engage that line of questioning with him, period. Okay, great, fantastic. So if you basically didn't do that with him, at the end of the game, when you need to look, when you're looking for a priest, you cannot ask him for help. He will not help you. There's one more priest that you can help, but in order to get that priest, I'm not going to spoil it for you because there's honestly just like no point bitching about it, but it is probably one of the most hidden quests in the entire game. In fact, I can almost guarantee you will not find that quest, because the place where you get that quest, you will go there, and that in and of itself might actually be a hint enough for you to find it ultimately. But the place where you need to go to get that quest, to get that only other priest in the entire game that you can get to help you. You will go there, but you will assume that there is no way a priest can be found here. There is just no way. There is a way, and you will be very annoyed when you discover how to do it, how it's done. So yeah, the fucking Goldfinger thing is completely skippable, and it is really easy not to get it, actually, by just not playing into the Goldfinger's bullshit. And you cannot bribe him. Are you seriously telling me I cannot give him like 10,000 groschen? Are you seriously telling me I cannot give like 20,000 to any other priest on the entire map? No, you just, the option to offer anyone money to help you with that is just not an option. The game doesn't give you that option. Which is just ridiculous. Oh, this game is so immersive, guys. You can literally solve problems in any way you want. Yeah, right. Guys, even fucking something like Dishonored would probably give you an option to just like bribe somebody in a situation like that. You need to find some meat for the war camp. Nope, it's Pooty. You physically bring the meat to the war camp. It counts. Okay, cool. You need to find beer for the war camp. Okay, you physically deliver beer? No. You cannot deliver beer like that. No. The game will not accept it. Guys, I literally have like 1,000 bottles of beer right here in the pile in front of you guys. You're not gonna accept it? No. No, in order for it to work, you need to go to an innkeeper and come up with a deal so that they would be delivering kegs of beer to the war camp. Like, really, that's the only way we can make this work. Yep, that's the only way we can make it work. And guess what? There is one innkeeper on the entire map. So good fucking luck finding that innkeeper, without fast travel on hardcore mode. Yeah. That's going to be fun, looking for that one. And unless you have done a few side quests for him and you have good relationship with him, he's just going to decline. You cannot bribe him. You cannot offer him, like, I legitimately, I could at that point offer him like 30 fucking thousand groschen. I could, for that thing. Nope. There is no such option to bribe him. Wow, guys, so immersive. Dude. Wow, Kingdom Come is so fucking immersive. Wow, you can like literally do anything. You can play any way you want. Yeah, whatever, guys. So, as you can see, in some cases, the game does allow you to solve problems your way. Moo, come on. Enough. Come on. Moo. In some instances, the game does allow you to solve the problems your way when the game kind of like doesn't really care about how exactly you finish the objective. And in those cases, the game does work. In kind of like a meme way, it works, of course. Because, you can just think of a hypothetical example of, go and get the item. And in the process of going and getting the item, you literally slaughter the entire village full of people. And in kind of like, like a comedy of, in a chained comedy of errors, of constantly being rediscovered until you eventually have the whole village after you and you just slaughter them all. But then the quest giver will not acknowledge the fact, will not acknowledge how you actually got the objective done. Yeah, that's a pretty big video gamey thing, but it would still be acceptable, I think, because it is acceptable for many other games. It's kind of like you outsmarting the game, rather, or the game allowing for itself to be broken, which is much better than the Rockstar's thing of oh, you attacked an innocent, mission failed. Oh, you stepped out of bounds, mission failed. It's much better than something like that. Although I did get that in Kingdom Come Deliverance at the very end of the game. When you storm Talmberg, and then there is a horse ride section there, I kind of decided to skip through the woods during that ride section, and the game wanted me to stay on the road, so it failed the objective, all right? And it put me back to my last save, which was before the Talmberg assault. I kid you not. I had to do the fucking final, like, assault on Talmberg twice. So, as you can see, the game cannot even be consistent with something like that. Sometimes it allows you to break itself, which is cool, but often the game does not recognize its own optional steps being skipped, for example, and just assumes the best and most complete outcome of like previous activities and quests in the game. Oh, I completely forgot about one more thing. Yeah, and sometimes the game actually does not allow you to solve certain very obvious problems, solve certain problems in very, very obvious ways. Like, we need beer. Well, how about we go and buy it? Oh, no, 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 no. No, 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 you cannot. Unless you have a high enough relationship with one specific innkeeper so that you can convince them to donate the beer, you just cannot get the beer any other way, dude. Like, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? You know? That's interesting. Yeah. So immersive. Yeah. So, not really that deeply thought through. It's not that well written. And it still has a few bugs. At one point, for example, my horse just randomly died in the middle of nowhere as if an archer shot it, despite the fact that the only enemy in the game did not even have the bow in their heads. Yeah, the only enemy on the map there. Apparently they did have a bow, right? But the game did not like draw them as holding the bow. This was a pretty big bug, because, you know, visually it looked like my horse just spontaneously died. Stuff like that does happen occasionally. In terms of like NPC routine and stuff like that, guys, the NPC in this game are just as stupid as they were in Oblivion. 100%. It is so immersion breaking. I do not understand how, and it's noticeable almost immediately. From the very start of the game, it's very noticeable. And I do not understand how more people do not like talk about it or called it out when the game came out. No, everyone was just absolutely ecstatic about how immersive and realistic this game is. Really, it's so video gamey once you push past the first like hour. And yeah, so if I had skipped those 20 hours of kind of like adventuring, if I didn't do 20 hours of adventuring, the game would have probably been about 15 to 20 hours long, and I kid you not, over half, or at least about half of that time, the game is just an unskippable cutscene. From the first 4 hours, which are essentially just one unskippable cutscene, to the final 6 to maybe even 7 or 8 hours, it's just super linear and borderline. You don't even have super just linear slop, and you don't even have to do anything for most of it, because like all the battles basically play themselves. So like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, so I'm not super impressed with the openness of the game when it comes to the main story. Really not. Like, I honestly almost wish I didn't finish the main story and just kind of dropped the game after, you know, having pushed through the opening and then like open world adventuring for about 20 hours. I think I would have cometh away with a much better impression of the game, because honestly, the last 6 hours to maybe even 7, 5 maybe if you like beeline, are so bad. They are just as bad as the opening. In fact, they're even worse, I think. And then the epilogue and the final cutscene and the everything. Like, I don't mind the fact that technically the main story, kind of like, the point of the entire story was not really resolved. But just how the game ended was just so fucking boring, guys. Yeah, for the last, I would say 2 to 3 hours of the game, I was just like, I was grinding my teeth. I just couldn't bear it anymore. Yeah, no, sorry. The way the middle part of the main story is fine, so that's about 5 to 6 hours maybe. But the opening 4 hours and then the closing 4 hours, potentially even 6 or 7, are almost entirely unbearable. It's fucking worse than the Skyrim main quest, because there you can at least fucking laugh at how shit everything is. Here it's just, you slowly walk forward while your soldiers kill enemy soldiers, or you watch cutscenes, or you slowly, ride somewhere, or you wait. There is in total 4 days of waiting you need to do at the end of the game before you can initiate the final battle. You need to wait 2 days at one point, then there's a battle, and then you need to wait 2 more days before there's a final battle. So that's fun, that's like super fucking fun. And another thing, by the way, and I completely did not go out of my way to skip that specific patch of optional content to just kind of be an asshole to the game and be like, you see how I can break you. No, I absolutely did not do that on purpose or out of spite. But the character of Hans, I did not become friends with him at all. I don't even know how many side quests he has. After the main quest, where you go hunting with him, and then you kill 2 humans, during whatever, right? By the end of that quest, Hans is kind of like delirious and currently being, in the process of recovery. So you can't really interact with him. The main story tells you, okay, Sir Hans is going to be in recovery for a while. Okay, cool. And that's it. The game never brings it up. You can romance Theresa, whatever, that fucking cunt, and you legitimately, at one point, the game just randomly brings up the main quest called Courtship, which is basically you romancing Theresa, and the quest ends, by the way, with you fucking it, which is a pretty nice statement by the game, I think. It's like, once you do the thing, like, that's it. That's the end of the quest, really. It's like, there's nothing more to it. So that's kind of nice. Yeah, but anyway. And you need to go out with her at least 3 times, I think, and on the 3rd time you fuck. And once you go out with her once, the game will bring up an objective telling you, in a few days I need to ask her again. And once a few days goes by, the objective will update, telling you, okay, a few days have passed, now I can go to Theresa again and go out with her. Okay, the video game does that for that relationship. For Hans, it never does that. The game never tells you to go check up on Hans. The main story does not bring him up even once until the final battle, where he joins the army. In fact, it's specifically not even the final battle, as in Hans literally joins the party at the... Momo, let's not hunt there. Come in. Literally 5 more minutes. Let's go. Hans joins it during the most idiotic, probably the worst mission, not only in the game, but one of the worst pieces of gaming released that year, potentially, which is the night raid mission. That's where Hans joins you. All the siege shenanigans before that, Hans is not even in the picture. Like, who the fuck knows where he is? Yep. So that's the only moment where Hans kind of reappeared. And I think I saw him in the castle a couple times after the hunting mission. And I just saw him in bed, I think, kind of like rolling around. And I assumed, well, he's still recovering or whatnot. But no, the game never tells you, go check on Hans, you know, maybe you should hang out with him. Nope. I mean, maybe if you go out of your way, find Hans, talk to him, it will start a side quest of your relationship with him. Maybe. I don't know. But unless you go out of your way, the game doesn't do that. The game never makes you so that you encounter him in some kind of, you know, just encounter him in some kind of quest, and through one of the dialogues of that quest, maybe, you know, it would be brought up that Hans and Henry are becoming friends, and it would start the optional objective of kind of like your friendship with Hans. Nope. It never does that. The hunting quest itself doesn't start an optional objective like that. The game never tells you to go check on him. So I never did. And I didn't even think about it. I was not trying to be an asshole. And by the time I realized that, first of all, I was not quite at the siege quest yet, but I was kind of like getting close to it, and I was also kind of, that was happening during the period of the main quest when it's actually pretty interesting, it's actually pretty good. So I didn't feel like doing anything else other than, you know, beelining the main quest, because I've already, you know, traveled the world for 20 hours. I've already done that. So I wanted to do the main quest. I didn't really want it, but I decided to try it, and it turned out to be actually pretty okay for quite some time. It's a shame that it ended up being just as bad as it started. So in the end, it probably wasn't really worth all that much, but I kind of, you know, I wanted to see the whole thing, because, yeah, you know, my intuition is pretty much always right. So it was right. I was correct in this sense that, you know, like the open world part of Kingdom Come is really great. Well, maybe not great, but it's good. It's kind of like good to great. And it is worth trying out. But I was completely right to think that, you know what, the main quest, I'm probably gonna pass. It's so linear, I don't feel like doing it. Yeah, and I was correct in thinking that. It's just that I was about 60% right about it. There is pretty interesting kind of role-play game in the middle section of the main quest. But the first quarter and the fourth quarter of the game are... The last quarter is even worse, honestly. The last quarter is so bad. But yeah, those quarters both are bad. But the last one is nearly infuriatingly bad. And I'm not the only one who says it, by the way. Even people who love all of the walking sections from the walking cutscenes, you know, unskippable cutscenes from the first quarter of the game, and even some, you know, from the middle part of the game, even people who loved all of that shit, they all still note how the last quarter of the game just almost entirely falls apart. The devs just gave up. Yep. So I'm not just coming up with that stuff. That's a legitimate criticism that even fans, or shills rather, I should say, of this game even share pretty much with each other and myself now. So yeah, was not going out of my way to not become friends with Hans. I didn't even think about it because I was just playing game organically, and organically your relationship with him is never brought up. So yeah, I mean, thanks for the shills who probably got a pretty big kind of like guide to how to play the game, you know, where to go to find something interesting so that you can put it in your review to shill the game better, right? So that's where they, you know, got the whole Hans deal. But I promise you, I mean, now everyone who would be playing Kingdom Come Deliverance, pretty much ever since the beginning, because the game was shilled up out the ass, pretty much knew everything there was to know about the game before they even tried it, right? Because of all the shills, the streamers, the reviewers, whatever, shills. Because of all the grifters and shills, everyone knew everything about that game before trying it. And one of the biggest thing was your totally not gay relationship with Hans, which was made gay in the sequel, so that's nice. So everyone will know to be pushing, Hans, to be approaching Hans, to be friends with you. Everyone just knew that, right? But I promise you, the only two people, who ended up playing the game organically, me being the third, you will just not encounter that relationship at all. I have no idea why the game kind of makes a intentional, really, with intent. It kind of hides that relationship. And by all the shills and whatever, fans of this game, it's considered to be like such a nice thing, how close you become, your relationship starts kind of strained, and then you become best friends. Never experienced that, and the way the game is structured, it literally never happens. The whole thing might be a DLC that you need to read the description of the DLC in order to know how to access it. Like, the game itself does not actually telegraph where you need to go to start the DLC, But if you read the DLC, it's kind of just like one of those systems at Skyrim. There's an NPC now in the world. You now can become friends with Hans, The DLC description text will tell you that, but the game itself will not tell you that. So it's almost like something like that, It's almost something like you needed to read about it in an update patch, in a patch note or a DLC description to know it even exists. So yeah, honestly, as an RPG that's supposed to allow you, to solve all these problems in these millions of ways, because the game is actually a bit of an immersive sim, so its systems in real time kind of adapt to your actions and your decisions. No. Most of the interesting, out of the way kind of decisions that you can make in this game are something that the game has to allow, purposely have in its design. And then some other things it actually doesn't even do a good enough effort to work with. Like, for example, the relationship with Hans is supposed to be this big part of the game. The game doesn't even tell you that it's possible. And why would you reapproach Hans organically after that? Do you reapproach Sir Hanush, just because? Do you just go to Radzik to randomly talk to him? 99% of the players would not do that. So, yeah, whatever. The big part of the game is actually nobody even knows it exists, honestly, who plays the game organically. All the do things oh, look at how many optional steps there is. Yeah, if you skip all of them, the game still treats it as if you've done all of them. So yeah, guys, not super impressed, honestly, with how, it's a good game, all things considered, but it's super overhyped for things that it absolutely does not deserve. Overall, it's not like I'm going to give it a score or anything, but I would just like to say that, what was the big deal again? I don't think there ever was. Just, shill machine of the industry. And also, by the way, the game is not fucking indie game, okay? I don't understand why so many people consider it an indie game. Warhouse is not an indie studio. They started as an indie, and it's not a Kickstarter game even. So they were basically never indie. They were at one point in the process of looking for a publisher, and they did a Kickstarter for a proof of concept, so that they have an early build, a proof of concept build to show to the publishers. That's it. That's all the Kickstarter part of the project. They were never indie. It's not an indie game, guys, I'm sorry. I'm not sure if it's a AAA, but it's most definitely not a AA. Or yeah, I don't think it's a AA even. I don't know what the exact budget for the game was, but I think it's like something around 50 million. I'm sorry, 50 million is at the very edge of AA. In fact, 50 million is pretty much AAA. I mean, maybe not by like Rockstar, you know, standards, or like Bungie standards, or Sony standards, but I'm not considering those fuckers like AAA. You know, those are basically just fucking tech demos. Tech demo developers. And speaking of bugginess, the final cutscene before the final credits, I mean, there is an epilogue also in the game, but the epilogue does not have credits. So the final cutscene before the credits still has wrong subtitles. It has subtitles from a whole other cutscene. The second game came out recently. They couldn't fucking be fucked to fix that thing about the first game. Part of the main quest, part of the final cutscene of the main quest has a huge fucking bug in it. Not even a bug as much as a like literal developer mistake, developer fucking up. Nope, cannot be fucked to fix. That's Warhorse for you. Warhorse. Such a respected indie developer. What was the big deal again? Why was the second game so hyped? Like, oh, it's the sequel to this beloved, you know, treasure of a game by the treasure of a developer. Guys, yeah, it had interesting ideas, I suppose, for a AA quote-unquote game. But honestly, just yet another game by kind of like an indie dev dude who played Oblivion, who played like maybe Daggerfall or Skyrim, and thought, hey, what if I made my own, but with this super unique twist? Oh my god, I am such a genius video game director. Totally, let's do that. Never played any other video game in their life, by the way. And you can always tell that. That's why indie is so terrible right now. Because everyone is a fucking indie video game developer these days, despite the fact that, you know, they never played Bayonetta, they never played like fucking like Resident Evil 4, they never played Metal Gear Solid. All they played is fucking Super Metroid when they were 8 years old, and like Castlevania, Symphony of the Night. And now they are an indie video game developer, and they fucking make a video game that, you know, makes every single mistake possible that has been kind of like a common knowledge how to avoid stuff like that in the video game developer sphere for the last 20 years, for the last 30 years, in fact. But now we bring all of that shit now because all the accumulated knowledge of video game design has just been lost in the last 10 years, you know, because of all you fucking hipsters and grifters who fucking pretend to love video games and to be into them, and even pretend to be like video game developers. You know, every fucking like idiot with some connections or some free time or wealthy parents now becomes a video game developer despite never fucking playing a video game in their life, despite maybe one, like Stardew Valley or some shit like that, and they're like, ooh, let's make our own farm simulator. Ooh, I want to be video game developer so hard. Like, yeah, dude, whatever. And, you know, Kingdom Come Deliverance is basically just one of those games, you know. It's extremely flawed game by people who just wanted to make Oblivion, but with a twist, and they did that. I wish they, you know, I wish they had some better ideas. I don't understand you. Can you just, like, either stand in place or whatever? I cannot unhook you. Okay, well, maybe I can unhook you, actually. You know, it's just yet another basically kind of like PC fucking greenlight game, you know, that maybe in theory has an interesting premise, but it doesn't have a particularly interesting vision. It doesn't have a particularly like groundbreaking anything about it. And you know, it's kind of made by like whatever, you know, people who were not exactly schooled by the traditional video game design, meaning every single mistake that could be made, you know, has been made, because their only reference for what makes a video game, for how a video game can be done and shall be done, you know, their only reference is like Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim. For being a relatively old game, Kingdom Come Deliverance is almost like what? Is it almost 10 years old? It is almost 10 years old, right? Jesus Christ, guys. I mean, yeah, it looks very good. It's very... Oh, come here. I need to put this fucking head away somewhere. Looks good. It, now at least, it plays competently. Although, it's still, you know... Final cutscene is not fixed. But it absolutely feels like an early access game, or a green light game rather. It absolutely feels like kind of like a very niche idea, relatively dryly realized. And there is a little bit of heart in it, but there's not a lot of, how should I put it, like proper, kind of like video game design. It is very, very obvious that the only reference for what makes a video game, for how a video game can be made and shall be made, the only reference the developer had was like the Elder Scrolls game. Like, that's it. They did not have any other ideas beyond that, or any other vision or understanding of video games beyond that. And to me, despite being a relatively interesting product, it doesn't make me particularly excited, you know. Because despite, you know, all of the claims, you know, for being super immersive and being super hardcore and being super, like, punishing, whatever. No, the game is none of those things. The game is actually very much a very video gamey game. Been there, done that. You know, if you played any of the Elder Scrolls games, like, it is a little bit more kind of like realistic, I suppose. You know, Oblivion, but a little bit more realistic. Well, guys, I get that none of you played Oblivion. You know, for all of you, Skyrim is the only one worth playing anyway, which is very funny that you think that, but that's what you do. But for me personally, I played that stuff already. It's yet another one of those games where, yeah, sure, I appreciate, you know, I need you to stand in place. Jesus. Cannot approach you if you keep walking away from me. Boom. Yeah, for someone like me, I appreciate the passion, I suppose, of the dev, and I can see the passion, definitely. And it almost compensates for the lack of vision and for the lack of skill and understanding, I suppose, for video games. Because it's very much, you know, one of those games where it's like somebody in their 40s, you know, discovered video games for the first time by playing like some, like, I don't know, 7 Days to Die or like Oblivion for the first time or something like that. And it's like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we made something like this, but like more realistic? Oh, would be so immersive, would be so groundbreaking. And like, yeah, guys, whatever. I appreciate your passion, but your idea, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, it just sucks, it's lame. I'm sorry. But I appreciate the passion, and the game is executed relatively well, so it's not entirely unfun. But, and I get the premise, by the way. I get the premise, I get the aesthetic, I get all of that. It's okay, it's fun. It's just that what the game, both the game itself and the shills of the game, is trying to paint one picture for what the game is, but the game is actually a slightly different thing. And that slightly different thing is what I just said. It's Oblivion, but slightly more realistic. And that's not as exciting as super hardcore immersive, like medieval life simulator. Ooh, with like complete fucking freedom for everything. No, it's not. No, it's not. So, in light of all that, I don't understand what the big deal was, and I definitely don't understand what the hype for the second one then was. Like, honestly, dude, whatever. I mean, I will play the second one eventually, I think, but why was it like the big... It's kind of like The Evil Within 2, you know? The Evil Within 1 was not a particularly good game. It was actually better than the second one, I think. I have talked about it about a month ago. I had some thoughts on it. I think all things considered, Evil Within 1 was at least a video game. Evil Within 2 is barely a video game. It's a walking simulator. But yeah, guys, like, whatever. First game wasn't even all that fantastic, wasn't even all that groundbreaking. Kingdom Come, I mean. So the hype for the second one, I almost do not get it. Alright, okay. That's pretty much it.